Purcell. I'm the career librarian here at the Champaign Public Library. Today we have Nicole with us. She's from Defy the Trend. She's a yoga instructor, a mindfulness person. She's here to teach us about burnout and recovery. So thank you so much, Nicole.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. I am totally excited to be here. It's really no secret that I love the library. I love libraries in general. I have especially learned to fall in love with this particular library, so thanks to the Champaign Public Library for letting me do this. And Kat, yay, this is so awesome. So yes, as Kat said, we're going to be talking about burnout, how to recognize it, and then how do we recover from it or combat it so that it doesn't happen. I'll say more about that in a little bit. A few more words about me. So I'm Nicole Havelka. My business is Defy the Trend. I'm a burnout recovery coach and a sustainability strategist. What that means is that I help people recover from burnout, first of all, individuals, but then I also work with organizations who are values aligned or want to align better with their values so that they can prevent burnout, so that they can structure their organization in such a way that they will prevent burnout. I also can do things like corporate wellness events and trainings and things like that. So that's a little about me. I learned that there's a name for what I am a couple of years ago, which is multi-passionate. I'm sure someone made that up. Well, all words are made up inherently, right? But like, somebody made that word up. So I'm many things, and I've had many iterations to my life and career. I'm a journalist and now a content creator is what they call that. I'm an ordained clergy person in the United Church of Christ. Like I said, I'm a burnout coach. I'm a student of organizational change. Like, I like how groups change and I like knowing about that. I'm a yoga and meditation instructor and a practitioner for more than 20 years. I'm a theater kid and I'm a foodie. I also love to watch TV and currently obsessed. Two obsessions are The Gilded Age and Ghosts. Our two shows. So if you want to talk about that at some point, I'm happy to talk about that, but not right now. I'll keep that to the side for the moment. So if you want to find me, there's all kinds of stuff on the screen. You can scan that QR code and that'll get you directly to my scheduler, my online scheduler. If you want a free 30-minute call with me, you can find me. These are just the places I spend most of my time digitally these days. I go on LinkedIn or my website. You can find me, more about me there. You can find me on Substack, which I love. As a former journalist, I write on Substack. I have a very soon to be coming podcast by the same name, Just Rest, which will, if you want to find more about that, it's there. And YouTube is another good place to find things, and my podcast will live there as well. So that's where to find me. I'll say all that again later, I swear. So I thought we would get started, though, by doing a little bit of grounding, because just a really brief grounding practice, because I know we've probably all been coming from a lot of different places and spaces and maybe feel a little discombobulated today. So this is just going to be really quick. What I'd invite you to do is take a look around the room that you're in. Like, take a look at where the doors and windows are. You might look at the ceiling above. Look down at the floor. Maybe even make your eyes go kind of annoyingly slow around the room. It really has a way, I don't know, when I do this, I can feel like my nervous system like settle a little bit.
It definitely helped me start breathing slow.
right, your breathing might slow, things like that. So that's a little pro tip. If you there, so just feel yourself. We got distracted, started talking. So anyway, like it's okay. We'll come back to your seat. Maybe feel your feet, feel the backs of your legs on your seat, and that's just a quick way. That's a little pro tip. It's not necessarily even a yoga practice. It's a somatic practice, meaning something in your body to help the body and the nervous system settle. And it's just a really great way to get groups and people kind of in the space that they're in. So feel free to use it. I didn't make it up, that's for sure. Another kind of grounding that I like to do is to talk about values, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later too, and invite you to reflect on your own. But I like to just as a way of getting you acclimated to how I do things, like these are the values that sort of guide me, these guide for conscious and unconscious motivators. One thing is relationships, and that I value those, so value connecting. That's why I've built in so much time to talk today. And I, of course, value you reconnecting with me at other times as well. We care, caring is important. We listen. We try to reduce the distractions as best we can in the room. Maybe if you can, turn your phone over. If you have a device or something like that, like shut down as many of those distractions as is possible. And then we value rest, and so what I do is encourage you to take care of yourself. If you need to use the restroom or walk around the room or take a break of any kind, I'm not easily flustered or distracted, so you're not gonna bother me, I promise. And we've all just agreed that this is the way we're gonna be today, so no one else is gonna be bothered either. How about that? It'll be great. And then curiosity, so I invite you that if something feels a little weird or you're feeling judgmental about something, like ask a question. Like get curious about what is going on. Because sometimes like I can say something that's a little strange, or maybe someone in the room, once we start talking, will do that. And that's okay. Like ask a question about it, like rather than moving into that space where like, no, that sounds dumb, or I don't like it, or whatever. Which is just normal human nature, it's okay. Like it's what we do when things are weird. But if we can learn to catch that, it's really helpful. And then authenticity, bring your whole self, your messiness, your struggles, because we certainly want to have that conversation here today. Like what you struggle with burnout, because there's no point in us just hiding it all, because then we wouldn't have a very good workshop today. So what is going to happen? What are we going to go over today? We're going to talk about the signs of burnout. That's just three quick things I'll talk about. And I'll talk a little bit more about why we burn out as well. Spoiler alert, it's not your fault. Not an individual problem, it's a bigger problem than that. And then I've created 4 burnout mindsets, which I'm gonna teach you about. Like what are the ways that we internalize like this external pressure to perform? How do we respond to that? I'll give you some simple antidotes for burnout. And I told you there's some interaction in those. I'll give you some time to work, do some journaling and things like that. And then I will offer you some resources and feedback as well. Okay, so as promised, what is burnout? So I got this from the book Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle, a book that I really like, by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. And yes, they're sisters, they're twin sisters, actually, who wrote this book together. One has a medical related PhD, and the other one is has a master's of fine art, or a doctorate in fine arts and music, actually. Very interesting folks. And this book came out, I think, in 2020, I want to say, and really got really popular. So here's the 3 things that they talk about that kind of typify burnout. Oh, and these, I didn't mention this. So they are actually quoting Herbert Freudenberger, who is a German psychologist who who defined this and coined this term back in the 1970s. So the first thing about burnout is that one of the qualities of it is that you're emotionally exhausted. Like you don't have, you might feel numb, you don't have your feelings, or maybe they're dysregulated, you're not sure what they're doing. There's an emotional exhaustion component to this. And then there's, I think this is the flip side of the same coin, it's depersonalization or a lack of empathy for other people. So even when you don't, sometimes this is called compassion fatigue. People call it that, especially in helping professions, people who do things, who are constantly doing things for other people. So you start having a lack of empathy, you just don't sort of care about what's going on with other people. And that's depersonalization. And then finally, the final quality, again, that Dr. Freudenberger came up with those many years ago, that there's a decreased sense of accomplishment. In other words, you don't feel like much of anything that you do matters, or it doesn't make any difference. Like you just don't feel. And so what happens if you feel that way, you're probably not gonna make much of an effort. You're gonna quit making an effort. So those are the three signs of burnout. That's very simple. You can get slightly different versions of this, but this is sort of the original. The OG, if you will. So here's what I want to tell you though. It's not your fault. A lot of times, and this drives me crazy, like if you read or listen to like time management gurus or people like that who talk or self-motivate, those sort of motivational speaker type people, sometimes they'll make this all a personal problem. Like, oh, you just need my planner and this system for getting it all done. You just need all of those things. And I'm not saying those things can actually be helpful. I'm actually not saying none of that is that it's bad necessarily, but we have a system in our world that is pushing us to overwork all the time. Think about it. The United States was built on exploited labor. Chattel slavery, things like indentured servitude, or even just the exploitation of immigrants, whoever the current cycle of immigrant was being exploited all the time. And so this pressure, and then even as people, maybe they aren't looked upon as immigrants anymore or whatever, things have changed, like our habits around overwork have not. And so there's a constant cultural pressure to do more. And in terms of your work, you're being pushed for a variety of reasons to do more beyond the hours that you're paid for, because that's what it means to be a good employee. Oh, you work the extra hours, you put in the extra thing, and then you'll get rewarded for that, which is sometimes true, but oftentimes not, quite frankly. You're not really rewarded for that, you're just working for free. So this is the culture we live in, and so there's this constant pressure to grind, the constant pressure to do more, try to make more money, or whatever. That's just baked into our system. And so I like to spend a little time on this to remind you it's not your fault. But we can use some of those tools to maybe flip the switch on this, and so that it's not, at least not quite so bad for us individually. And I always also think that every time that we're making the choice to rest, or making a choice to work less, or work an appropriate amount, we're actually pushing back against that system and changing it. It doesn't seem like a lot that we're doing, but it actually makes a difference in the long haul, I think. Anyway, movements always start with tiny little things. So this is the next part this is the part that I created to help people get underneath what that system, what kind of mindsets that creates in our, what kind of mindsets that creates for us and how we internalize this external pressure to keep working. So there's 4 mindsets, and it's based on the basic stress response types. So in the realm of this is not your fault, our stress responses are our body's way of handling stress. This is not something that's easily controllable, by the way, but as we become more aware of it, as we learn how to work with our nervous system a little bit more, we come up with more somatic practices to help our body. We can begin to alter those those reflexive or habitual practices that we engage in. So I'll tell you about these types. The names I came up with, there's a lot of alliteration because I like alliteration. So the achievement addict, so this is someone who will fight through stressful times, like a warrior, but then just sort of collapse, and they have nothing left to give. That's what ends up happening there. So this is, understandably, this is our body's fight response. So this is kind of one of the more well-known ones. So our body, if there's a stressor, if there's something that is challenging us or attacking us, we fight back. That's what a basic stress response. Again, this is reflexive. Our body just does this for us. And all of these things are very useful in particular contexts. And then sometimes they're not as useful. So this person is all about powering through. This is one that I definitely relate to a lot. Although I have to say that over time, things have changed. I'm less apt to power through, simply because I don't have the energy anymore. But so you're all about the powering through, you're fighting, it's the fight response. So what happens if the fight response, if we don't engage that or it doesn't seem useful? So we might become someone who's reliably unreliable. You tend to say yes to almost everything, and then you might cancel or fail to show up. So what is happening there is that this is the flight response, or the response of running away from a threat. So again, running away from a threat is a perfectly good response in a lot of cases, right? If a bear is really attacking you, running away might be one of your good, solid options, right? Getting away in the appropriate way. I probably, don't listen to me for how to get away from bear tips. I don't actually know that, but I'm just using that as an example. So flight, so we flee, we try to get away from the response. And so your system is easily overwhelmed by a lot of opportunities, and God knows we have plenty of opportunities to do things or get things done, right? So easily overwhelmed by the opportunities, you don't have a clear sense of priorities or things like that in your mind, and so you will tend to say yes to a lot of stuff and then just can't do it all. And then maybe don't show up, or you cancel because you just can't do it. And I should be clear, it's not bad to like cancel or not be able to do things, but when it's chronic, it tends to start impacting your life, right? If it happens all the time. So then the third one is a routine rejector. And this is actually very similar to the one we just did. This is someone who has trouble like making choices also, and kind of setting a schedule because everything seems really important or interesting, and the pressure to perform any tasks seem to be too much, so you don't. So this is the freeze response. So the basic response in our body is that if we are threatened by something, one of our strategies for dealing with a threat, if we don't think we can fight our way out of it, or maybe we don't feel like we can run away from it, is that we're gonna freeze up. And that's a really good response in some cases with like physical threats, because then you kind of play dead, it's that response, and that sometimes saves you. That will sometimes save you. It's not a totally bad response. The problem is it starts getting triggered in our day-to-day lives, and freezing up may not be the best thing for us when we're trying to we are trying to actually show up and do our good, whatever our good is in the world, we're trying to show up and do it. Freezing up may not be the best thing. So we tend to freeze up, and maybe you don't, this is someone who may not be as burnout prone actually, because you just have trouble making any choice, and you don't make any because of that. So you may not be as busy, but this is a freeze response. But I've also had this happen. My clients and friends I know that have ADHD, this freeze response is a piece of that when they're overwhelmed, and they'll be like just sort of, I had someone recently tell me it's like being in a coma, like you just can't do anything because you're so overwhelmed and you know you need to get things done, but you don't know where to start. So that's your body's freeze response. And then we have one more. Oh, there it goes, it cooperated. So the perpetual pleaser, this is someone who really needs to be needed and does everything for everyone else. You know the type, or maybe you are the type. This is totally a very common phenomenon. This is a fawning response. So in the world of stress responses, fawning is when you attempt to control the situation or control the threat by pleasing other people. So if, for example, you're being asked to do something, generally the right answer is to say yes to someone, right? That'll win you social points, it'll make people happy, that makes whoever is asking you happy. The problem is that then you start saying yes to so many things without any regard to how it's impacting you and how it's impacting your own well-being. You may just not be doing well because you've said yes to too many things. And even so, you might start feeling kind of icky about the things you've said yes to. I know that one of the things that happens to me, whether I'm trying to please or not, if I start being resentful of the things that I'm saying yes to, that is when I have to stop. I have to say no, because if I'm feeling resentful or angry or frustrated that I said yes to something, it was probably the wrong choice. But we try to control situations by appeasing people, making them happy. And it generally works. This is why this is a really good strategy. It works really well, right? Until it doesn't anymore. So I would love to pause here and invite you to reflect And you can take a few moments with a piece of paper or some pens. I think we have some around. Which of these resonates with you and why? And maybe do a little free journaling or drawing if that's better for you. Here, if you happen to be watching a recording later, feel free to pause the video for a second. Do a little, as long as you need, do a little journaling or drawing, and which of these types seems to resonate the most with you right now? Awesome. So here's some simple antidotes. I know that is a really complex set of things or responses that our body has. Let's just give you some simple things for today that will help you with this. So simple antidotes can include, here we go. Here's some simple antidotes that you can use for this. So you can prioritize rest. Like I always have my group coaching community do like quarterly planning sessions. And one of the things that I insist on when we're doing those practice, like doing that planning, is to put their rest down first on their calendars. And it is the flip of what we normally do. It is really counterintuitive because it's not what we're taught. So I invite them to put down, you know, if they go for walks every, you know, at midday, or they, you know, every morning, if they're like me and like having a yoga or meditation practice is really important and that's a thing they have to do in the morning, like put it on your calendar, not just in your head, so that you know that it's a thing. And if you can't do it that day or your schedule's off or whatever, you find another way to do it, or maybe you move it to a different part of the day or a different part of the week. And I encourage them not only to do that like daily and weekly things, but to even take a step farther back and think, what are the things you need to do monthly? You know, they may not be the everyday things, but what are the things you need to do monthly to unplug? What are the things you need to do quarterly, or even like an annual trip that you take with your best friend or something like that? What are the things you need to do to really rest and recharge and do those sorts of things? So prioritizing rest is a really important thing. So one of the things I'm going to invite you to do is to maybe put at least one thing on your calendar today for the rest of the week. Well, to keep it really simple, like something in the next week or so, put it on your calendar. I'll give you just a second to do that. What is something that you would put on your calendar that maybe was in your head or you hadn't even thought about yet that you're going to do for that? I'll give you just a second to do that. And so if you're someone who wonders about what is rest, a lot of people will have that question for me sometimes, like, oh, I've made time now, well, what do I do with that? And here are 7 types of rest by the book Sacred Rest by Sandra Dalton Smith, which I like a lot. There's also a good Fresh Air interview with her, which is how I found out about her first. So there's 7 types of rest that she develops. Oh, and she's a medical doctor who had a lot of people coming in to her with like stress-related illnesses that couldn't be attributed to anything else. And so she started developing this so that she could help some of her patients rest better to help alleviate some of those symptoms that they were experiencing. Again, because she would do batteries of tests on them and they couldn't figure out any other physiological reason for them. So there's physical rest, and so that means sleep, or you know, just sitting, or that sort of sitting around stillness kind of rest, but it also means active rest. So that can be the kind of exercise that you like to do. That can be gardening, that can be any sort of activity that, you know, physical activity that feels restful to you, even sometimes if it's like exhausting to your body. I don't know about you, but I use my brain at my computer a lot, so getting out and moving is like a restful thing, even if it is tiring to my body. So we have physical rest. Mental rest is like this sort of act of unplugging, if you will. So how do you get away, especially from the work that you're doing? It's a way of those times of getting away and doing other things and not thinking, shutting your computer down and stuff like that. Sensory rest is similar to that. In our modern times, sensory rest means like withdrawing from, I think especially withdrawing from screens. So one of the things, another book that I like a lot is 24/6 by Tiffany Schlein. And she wrote this book about tech Shabbats, which means a day a week. She and her family just they're done with screens. They shut their computers and their phones off. And it's a practice they've done for years. The book is really, does a really good job, and I had thought about doing this practice for a long, long time, and then after reading the book, I don't do it 100% of every week, but I do try to shut my stuff off on Saturdays as best I can. I at least do it with my laptop at minimum. At minimum, my laptop's not on Saturdays, unless I have to work for some reason, which is unusual, but social rest. So this is like going out and hanging out with the people that like energize you. So it's not like social places that are like exhausting, like if you don't like networking events and things like that, that's not what I'm talking about here. This is hanging out with the people that you really care about, that energize you and then rejuvenate you. And for some of us, that might be groups of people. We like being in groups and that's energizing. For other people, that means one-on-one, because that's the only way it feels energizing to them. So that varies, but there is a component of social rest. There's also emotional rest, and this has to do with people as well. So this is like, and this is probably a very small circle of people, who do you trust to share, like especially negative emotions or things you're, like when you're when you're upset and not in a great place. So having a space, some space, where you can express those kinds of emotions or big emotions. Spiritual rest can be done either individually or in community. It's connecting yourself to your sense of higher purpose or a higher power, if that's something that resonates with you. For most of us, there is some sort of connection, bigger connection. So any kind of activity that helps you do that, that can be things like meditation or being part of a faith community. For some people, it's being out in nature, things like that. Just depends. And then creative rest is what it sounds like, creative. It's not, if you're someone who does painting for a living, you're probably not gonna paint as your form of rest, but like something that's creative to you, that's fun and different, and that you can do some creative activity that rejuvenates you. Often has nothing to do with like what you do in your life. Like I love to cook, and that's one of my creative outlets. Often I like to cook. And off and on I think maybe I should be a caterer, and I'm like, but I'd ruin it. I'd ruin it for myself if I decided to make it a business. Then it would not be fun. Cooking would no longer be fun to me because it would literally be a job. So it wouldn't be as fun anymore. So speaking about this, let's take a moment to relax and take a moment for rest. And so I'm going to invite you into a short guided meditation practice. You might want to do what we did earlier, the look around the room again, if you're feeling like you need a little bit of that before we get started, or you can feel into your feet, put them on the floor if that feels right to you. You might begin to feel your body against the supports beneath it. And only if it feels comfortable, soften, either close your eyes or soften your gaze. You can look at look at a spot in front of you, or kind of let your focus of your eyes soften. And simply begin to notice what is happening in your body. We don't notice our bodies a whole lot. We tend to get in our head, and I know I'm in my head because I'm presenting to you right now. But feeling into your body, maybe really feeling into your feet. And I'm going to invite you into a short body scan meditation. Sometimes it's called progressive relaxation. I'll invite you to feel into your body part, and feel into your certain body parts. And simply notice them. You don't have to move, you don't have to do anything with them. Simply notice them. And I should also say, if you don't want to spend time in that body part, or you don't have that body part or something like that, simply skip over it, move to another body part, or return to your breath as a way. Connect with your breath for a while. You can return to my voice at any time. So feeling into your feet. your feet, the ankles, knees, hips, the navel center, the heart center, the shoulders, elbows, wrists, hands and fingers, wrists, elbows, shoulders, throat, the space between the eyebrows, Maybe taking 1 or 2 rounds of breath in the space between the eyebrows. Dropping your breath into the space at the heart center, or the center of the chest, breathing in the center of the heart. Maybe breathing in the whole of your body, your whole body breathing. And then allowing your breath to return to its natural rhythm. And maybe notice for a moment or two, how does your body feel now? Have there been any shifts or changes in it since we started a few minutes ago? Then slowly begin to bring yourself back into our space. Maybe wiggling fingers or toes, or maybe rolling your shoulders or turning your head side to side. Fluttering open the eyes. You can open, close them. And eventually coming back in your space. And I'll be curious to know how that made you feel. How did that feel today?
It was good.
Good.
Good to check back in.
Good to check in to your body. I love it.
Particularly the place between my eyebrows. I don't think I think about that place enough.
No, not a place we think about on the regs, for sure. Yeah, the space between the eyebrows, for sure. for sure. And so again, for this idea of prioritizing rest, I invite you to, I really invite you to think about some rest practice, and hopefully that list of things really may have reminded you of something. Like, put it on your calendar, or maybe it's something that you do when you can, but prioritizing it by putting it down on a calendar. I really feel like that. I think that really helps us. It's simple, but it's something. So for really any of these stress response types that I was talking about, this is really helpful. It's especially helpful for the people who get overwhelmed really easily, but for any of this is useful. Stop before you say yes. So stop yourself. No more instant yeses to people. Even if you're super excited about doing something, no instant yeses. Let's all try to get that into our head, like stopping ourselves again, even if we're excited. So have some standard responses prepared for when people ask you to do things. So like, here's some examples. Let me check my calendar and get back to you. I use that one a lot. These are particularly good for when like you're face to face with people. Email, it's a little easier. You can be a little more passive aggressive with email, but or text messages or whatever, you can simply like let them sit for a bit if it's an ask that you can wait on. But anyway, have this response. So let me check my calendar and get back to you. I do that a lot with people. Frankly, even if I know what the answer is, even if I'm like, oh, I know I'm open that day, but I need to think through like what else I need to. Sometimes it's good to look at the big picture, because I don't know about you. I'm like, oh, I have that afternoon open, and then I'm like, but I have 47 other things that week that are making it a really tight week, right? So it's good to take a look at the big picture, or align it. We'll talk more about this in a minute. Like, is this thing really helping me do the things I've prioritized in this particular season? This week or this month or this quarter or whatever. Here's another one. Speaking of email, use email auto replies to do the work for you. So you can have an email auto reply that says, hey, these are my hours. This is about how long it takes me to respond to an email. You don't even have to put days on that. You can, I started putting on mine, I will respond to you when energy and capacity allows. Because sometimes that's an hour, and sometimes that's a week, right? And that just really varies from day to day, week to week. So let technology do some of that work for you. Be unavailable, especially on technology, some of the time. And just let people know that's how you respond. But an email auto reply is a really nice one for that. I don't think they have an equivalent for text messages, which I really wish they did. I've never, at least on an Apple phone, which I have, I've never figured it out. If someone wants to let me know, I'm happy to hear that though, because it may just be something I haven't figured out yet. Or if you're really someone who has trouble even with saying something like, hey, I want to check my calendar first, just get yourself out of the situation and be like, you know what, I need to go to the bathroom and just leave, or whatever some simple response is. So if it's super uncomfortable to even, if let me check my calendar feels like telling someone no, just walk away for a little bit, regroup, and try to process the decision you need to make. And give yourself a little bit of moment before you go back. Anything to get you out of the room. So if the other things are really feel too awkward to you. Here's another thing, get clear about your values. So this is one of the things that the doctors Nagoski said in the book Burnout, which I mentioned earlier, will really help you insulate from burnout. So naming your purpose and really connecting to a higher, so look at your list of come up with a list. What I'll invite you to do is take a look at this list of values. This isn't exhaustive, but please take a look at these, and are there ones that resonate with you as something that kind of guide what motivates you? It might help you set. One of the things I do in planning sessions then is use values and then intentions, and then help people decide what activities then support those best, because not everything supports that. That doesn't make that thing bad, it just means it's not aligned with whatever you want to do. So I'd invite you to take a few moments to journal on these. Again, if you're at home watching this video later, feel free to pause the video and reflect on that, and you might pick one or two of these and then journal on those for a few moments, and like how might you want those, how do you want those to show up in your life? Do a little bit of journaling about that. And then kind of a subset of this is then naming your priorities. If you have these like unconscious motivators or motivators in your values, what are your priorities? One of the activities I like to do, and I do a longer version of getting people to this, is to do a to-do and to-don't list, which I like a lot. So that's simply, you can do a to-do and to-don't list on a day you're overwhelmed. You can do this, I do it as a part of a longer planning session, like getting people to say, okay, these are the things I'm gonna prioritize. And then these are the things I'm not. And that doesn't mean those things are never gonna get back on the list. Or that you're dropping them entirely, although it might. Like sometimes I put things on lists that like just don't, you're like, that seemed important at the time and it doesn't anymore. And so it never comes back. Or maybe you delegate one of those tasks to somebody else. Or maybe you, there's any number of things you can do. Or you drop it entirely is an option as well. But a lot of times it's stuff that could be important in another time, and that's totally fine. We're just not gonna do it right now. So like I said, choose 3 to 5 words from that list, or add your own, and which ones resonate most with you. Oh, there's the to-do and to-don't list. Sorry, I keep messing this up. So here's just a little visual of what the to-do and to-don't list is. So I would love to, we're coming in on the end of this, so I invite you to think about what might be like one, and it doesn't have to be a hard thing, what is one simple next step that you might want to take from this? One of these little antidotes that you would like to do, or maybe something else that's been jarred here, maybe some other idea that you've come up with. And I would love to know what love for you to say, okay, I'm just gonna do one little thing. We tend to think we have to do all 50 things, just pick one. Pick one little thing you're gonna do in terms of help be an antidote for your burnout. And then I have additional resources for you.